Well, good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. My name is Freddy Ndimuli, and at least once you're past February 14th, you can sigh with relief. I think we're in the second part of this year.
We start the countdown to Easter?
Yes, but for us who attended the men's conference, we have a different story to tell. You survived Valentine's Day.
I survived Valentine's Day.
Good to see you.
It was a long Valentine's Day.
My name is Freddy Ndimuli. How hot is a coffee where you are?
I'm used to Stanley Nyarungita. I hope back at home you also survived Valentine's Day. This is Thursday, that day that we tell you about your relationship and how to better it. And this morning, discussing the kept man.
Ooh.
The kept man.
The kept man.
Oh yes, in case you're just waking up as a man, unajua probably the girlfriend ama bibi ndio ameenda kutafuta pesa. You're the one we're talking about. Oh yes.
Is it okay for a man to stay at home while the woman is out working? That's a big question we're asking this morning.
Think about it. And then talk to us. 22047 is our SMS number, TV47KE on Facebook, Kanyarungita_ and Fred Ndimuli. Tuingie kwenye magazetini, the highlights.
A quick look at the headlines this morning. Kazi, tsunami aja. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Farms to lay off 15% of staff on a tough economy. That's a Business Daily, and this is according to the Central Bank of Kenya.
On the Star, top Ruto men differ over key house bill.
On the People Daily, Ruto defies court order on e-citizen.
And on the Standard, revealed how fugitive in US lover's death was caught. We'll be telling you all about those details.
Finally, on the Daily Nation, secrets of Raila's AU job bid. Those are the headlines this morning. We'll be delving into them in detail later on.
Right, let's get into the traffic and the weather. This is, as you head into Nairobi, the CBD, just before you actually hit the Nairobi hospital, seems to be, yes, before you actually hit that Mombasa Road flyover. And getting into just before the Nyayo Stadium, seems to be a slight traffic snarl up all the way, but then it eases past. Let's see other places that you'd be expecting some slight traffic snarl ups. Just before the Muthaiga roundabout, there is a slight traffic snarl up right here. And that roundabout, but then it eases past that yellow line, as you can see. There you have it. It eases past. That is Thika Road. Well, it's still early, so probably this might be getting worse as the hours go by. Yesterday I was taking a look at how Murang'a was. Today I'm taking a look at the weather in Bungoma County. And Bungoma is 19 degrees Celsius as of today. The probability of it, some light showers in Bungoma. So if in case you're going there or you're there, watch out for that. Temperatures as high as 27 degrees Celsius, but then kutakuwa na kabaridi kidogo. That is the weather for you this morning.
All right. Let's go straight to the highlights. And we start off in Parliament, where the Senate and the National Assembly are set to begin debate on the National Dialogue Committee report today, amid push and pull over the reconstitution of the IEBC. President Ruto to tour Murang'a for the commissioning of the Thanga Irrigation and Water Project and the launch of the Maragua Bulk Water Project as he continues with his tour of the Mount Kenya region. And another person dies in Kirinyaga after consuming illicit liquor at Kandongu village just a week after 17 people died in the same county after a drinking spree. All right, those are the headlines and the highlights. Let's now take a look at the day's diary.
Right, but then majorly the day's diary really focuses on that trip to Murang'a by President William Ruto, as well as Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, officially launching a couple of water projects. We'll be taking a look at that. Let's get into the dailies now.
On the Standard this morning, revealed how fugitive in U.S. lover's death was caught. That's a big headline on the front page of the Standard. Busted. Details gathered from Kevin Kangethe's relatives who were rounded up by police. Intelligence briefs and call data enabled detectives to narrow down the search area and seize the fugitive who's wanted in the U.S. for the murder of his lover. And this one reads like a movie script, you know. And I think someone should actually make a movie out of it, especially the fact that he escaped from police custody by simply walking out of one of the biggest police stations in Nairobi. How embarrassing for the police service. But at least they managed to save face by apprehending him only days later. Still on the front page, what happened yesterday? Lovers paint city red to celebrate a Valentine's Day. And there are a photo there of a florist, Catherine Wamboi, City Market yesterday, and there was a lot of red. And if you frequent Kiambu Road, all the car dealers had actually put all their red vehicles outside. So you just seeing, and it was looking so nice because you just saw rows and rows of red-colored vehicles all along Kiambu Road, and the vehicles are so many. You know, all the car dealers moved to Kiambu Road, so it's kilometers and kilometers of red cars. Quite a spectacle. Back to the front page of the Standard. The other news given prominence there, fake papers, 700 civil servants on state payroll. Ministries and government agencies concealed staff who were employed and promoted based on fake certificates. Investigation by a multi-agency team has revealed. More highlights on the top strip of the Standard. Raila's fresh dilemma over top AU job. In business, World Bank's 6 billion shillings are for green initiatives. On the global front, the tough choices in Rafah war, and in sports, world's most expensive footballer, and that's on page 40. So we flip the paper, and it reads, behold, world's most expensive female player. Bay FC signed Zambian for world record fee from Madrid CFF. Kundundanaji. Kundananji scored 33 goals in 43 Liga F games for Madrid CFF. Wow. And yes, a photo there of Rachel Kundananji, and they say that her transfer fee is equivalent of 131.4 million Kenyan shillings.
Wow. Rachel
Kundananji, world's most expensive female footballer. And that's the Standard this morning.
Well, let's get into the Daily Nation and secrets of Raila's AU job bid. And they're calling it Take Two game plan. Opposition leader Raila Odinga is keen to return to the African Union to head the AU Commission, a higher-profile job than the one he held last at the continental body before his controversial exit last year. Besides relying on the Kenyan government, he has activated his networks around African capitals to assess whether his bid has potential for success or if it has doomed voyage, on pages 4 and 5. There are quite a couple of other highlights on this front page. We do start with the left strip. And forequized after death of star athlete, and it was men's marathon world record holder Kevin Kiptum negotiating a brand deal with a Chinese firm. For men who visited the athlete's home before his death in a road accident say they're not strangers to the family, but agents of the firm that was in talks with him. And also an anniversary. On the 13th of February last year, Lillian Waithera was shot dead by a sniper on Nairobi's Wabera Street. Oh yes, by the way, I remember this story. Paying tribute and anniversary to her. And they also say two sides of Valentine's. As February unfolds, so does the annual flurry of heart-shaped candies, saccharine cards, and the ubiquitous red roses signaling Valentine's Day. But amid Cupid's orchestrated symphony, a growing chorus of dissent is singing a different tune. On page 3. On the right, matters public service and exposed state farms run by officials with bogus papers. You were discussing this yesterday with a panelist. I'm pretty sure you'll be diving more on this. It is on the back page. Matters economy, shilling bounces back in dramatic surge against the dollar. So the local currency that has been on a free fall yesterday turned the tide in a surprising strengthening that jolted the forex market. And that is also on the back page, which you can now flip to. And first off, investigation begins as fake papers infest public service, and they've listed the institutions and together the fake cases in each of these institutions. On the right scroll, shilling rallies against dollar to post strongest intraday gain in years. And there's a quote there by Stella Swakei. Try to get who Stella is. A senior research associate from the Standard Investment Bank, saying there's a general increase in the supply of dollars, which have used a sentiment-driven phenomenon. This follows the partial Eurobond buyback. So that's just to try and explain all that. At the very top, all 50,000 plus athletes competing at the 14th of April Rotterdam Marathon to wear a special ribbon in honor of Kevin Kiptum. Stars management team discloses on page 34. That in a nutshell is the Daily Nation for you.
Okay, let's take a look at matters business on the Business Daily. Big headline: firms to lay off 15% of staff on a tough economy. It says CBK. CBK survey shows all firms except banks will retrench. The decision could impact more than 300,000 jobs. The private sector plans to retrench at least 15% of their workforce this year as a high cost of living, high taxes, a weak shilling and reduction in customers weigh down business. Now, this is a survey by the central bank. Elsewhere, Kenya shilling posts strongest single-day gain in 12 years. The Kenya shilling posted its strongest intraday gain against the US dollar in the last 12 years, yesterday reaping from a tide of investor confidence after the government received significant inflows to pay off the $2 billion Eurobond. And yeah, for instance, they say Equity Bank quoted the dollar yesterday at 153, KCB at 157. The CBK had quoted the local unit at 156. And if you check right now, yes, the dollar is moving up and down from 150 to 156 according to the CBK, but I'm sure those numbers will keep changing as the markets open later this morning. Business Daily on the ticker: state to drop minimum tea prices as stocks pile up. Bamburi to save 400 million shillings on power, and Moody's sounds warning on Kenyan banks' defaults. And that's the front page of the Business Daily today.
Right, from BD to PD, that's People Daily. The screaming headline: Ruto defies court order on eCitizen. They call it a defiance. Days after judge stopped directive on school fees payment through platform, Cabinet gives Machogu 30 days to digitize all key processes in the Ministry of Education. And there's a quote there by the president: payment of school fees through eCitizen won't be stopped since it helps to eliminate the payment of extra levies by some schools. And at the very bottom there, they have a photo of the president chairing a cabinet meeting at State House yesterday. Matters politics on the right scroll: no direct ticket for Kalonzo, says Raila men. Elsewhere, intrigues behind big fight for KBC top job. And at the very top scroll, Kenyans celebrate love on Valentine's. Having a number of Kenyans there buying flowers. That is the front page of People Daily. Fred, I know you had some flowers that you're walking around with.
Did you see me with flowers? I attended the men's conference yesterday. I was there. And chairperson, we talked about the plight of men and the fact that actually very many Kenyan men are dying through road accidents. It is a serious conference and it is a serious cause of concern that very many deaths that occur currently on the roads, especially border riders, it's men who are the victims.
So you are not carrying any flowers?
So I was very seriously attending as a delegate the men's conference. So I had no time to carry flowers anywhere.
I feel like you're now opening an evidence to show me this is me at the
Yes, I actually have receipts. So But before I show you the receipts, let's take a look at Taifa Leo. Kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, kazi tsunami yaja. Ni habari sawia na ile tuliona kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Business Daily. Asilimia 40 ya waajiri wametuarifu kuwa wangependa kupunguza idadi ya wafanyakazi wao ili kuoana na gharama ya kuendesha biashara nchini Kenya. Na hii ni kulingana na shirikisho la waajiri FKE. Wakati huo huo, utafiti wa CBK waonyesha kuwa wafanyakazi 300,000 watafutwa kazi mwaka huu. Na waajiri hawa ni katika sekta ya kibinafsi na wanasema watafuta angaa asilimia 15 ya wafanyakazi wao kutokana na mazingira magumu ya kibiashara. Kwingineko, vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, COG yakataa kukumbatia KRA County. Kwingineko, inspector wa polisi afariki akienda Haiti. Habari zaidi, utahini wa insha ya hotuba. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, masuala ya spoti, waliokuwa kwa Kiptum wakamatwa. Wanaume 3 kati ya 4 waliotembelea marehemu kabla ya ajali washikwa. Na kwingineko, masuala ya EPL, naarifiwa kwamba waliachiliwa baada ya kujibu maswali ya polisi. Kwingineko, Man City ndani ya 8 bora walishinda 3-1 dhidi ya Copenhagen, mechi ya mkondo wa kwanza. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 20, na hilo ndilo gazeti la Taifa Leo hii leo.
Right, about 5 headlines on the Star. First off, 2 Pluto men differ over key house bill, and Monica Juma contradicts Attorney General Justin Muturi, says contentious bill originated from State Law Office on pages 4 and 5. At the very bottom, we have 2 contrasting photos. One of Mombasa Catholic Archbishop, that is Martin Kivuva, was applying ash on worshippers yesterday during Ash Wednesday. Meanwhile, vendors buying flowers along Kimatha Street yesterday during the Valentines. At the very right scroll, death probe corpse arrests 3 men who visited Kiptum's home, and that update Fred was giving. Bottom there, Cambridge Stadium, mosquitoes are arriving in schools at 6 a.m. to bite kids. And more in context of this, mosquitoes have become smarter.
Go back to that issue of the mosquitoes. What do they do?
I was actually giving now context on that.
Okay.
So mosquitoes are arriving in schools at 6 a.m. to bite kids. So they have become smarter. And some are avoiding homes and instead hanging around primary schools waiting for children who arrive early for the morning preps. A new study says they immediately begin feasting on the pupils at 6 a.m.
So they figured out there's no point in staying in school when these children are asleep, or probably they're at home. They just wait for 6 a.m. and they show up.
They show up.
For proper breakfast.
Yes. Okay. At 6 a.m. exactly, according to this study.
Mosquitoes in 2024.
Oh yes, they say they've become smarter. Another highlight, MPs put NLC on spot of alleged plot to aid cartels. NLC is the National Land Commission. And finally at the top, police in Ngong arrested fugitive Kevin Kang'ethe after tip-off. And that is the Star for you.
All right. Let's now cross the borders and take a look at the headlines in Uganda. The Daily Monitor leads with this: 85 trillion shillings locked up in commercial courts. Yes, 85 trillion Ugandan shillings. Cases involving corporate disputes have tied up more than 44 trillion shillings, while those involving banking have locked up 10.5 trillion, among others. This is according to judiciary audits seen by the Daily Monitor. So 85 trillion shillings locked up in courts. There's a photo there of Christians celebrating Ash Wednesday, and they were urged to take care of the needy during Lent. That's a big headline on the front page of the Daily Monitor. That's the daily in Kampala, Uganda. The other daily in Uganda this morning, New Vision: did Otafire pay for Njeru farmland? That's a big headline there. Land sales agreement reveals shocking details on page 3 of the New Vision. And still another photo of, actually the same photo of the same woman celebrating Ash Wednesday yesterday. also features on the front page of the New Vision. So Ugandans are getting a bit religious during Lent, while in Kenya we were talking about Valentine's. No one has mentioned anything about Ash Wednesday.
Apart from the Star.
On their front pages, I'm looking at the Business Daily, the Standard, and the Daily Nation. No mention of Ash Wednesday anywhere, but a lot of mention of Valentine's. In Uganda, no one is mentioning Valentine's, but Ash Wednesday is featuring prominently on the front pages.
Well, the Star survived all that and mentioned it just briefly on the photos. From Uganda, let's cross over to Tanzania and start off with Mwananchi. Malaigawani nao wajipanga, Lowassa acha alama KKKT. Masuala ya kumkumbuka aliyekuwa waziri mkuu mstaafu Edward Lowassa, ambaye pia alikuwa kiongozi wa jamii hiyo, Lalgwanan, wakati wa ibada ya kumwaga iliyofanyika katika kanisa la Kiinjili la Kiluteri Tanzania, ni KKKT. Kwingineko, vita vya Babu Duni Othman. Babu Duni achukua fomu ya uenyekiti kutetea nafasi yake ACT. Masuala ya sukari, wakumbuka ilikuwa swala tata kule Tanzania, na wasema sukari kivumbi, watu wapanga foleni kununua. You're thinking of a business deal now. In case you feel like you have too much sugar right here in Kenya.
Well, we always suffer a sugar deficit in Kenya. We cannot claim to have abundance of sugar.
Well, Tanzanians are really looking for sugar. Pale juu, maandamano ya Chadema yateka Mwanza, DK Sia aibua mjadala. Ngineko Rais Samia anadi mambo matano ziarani Norway. That is Mwananchi for you. Let's see the next paper. To Tanzania, right. Imesema and on the Citizen, Central Bank on the spot for dollar exchange rate mix-up. And the Parliament is pointing a finger at the Bank of Tanzania for issuing official exchange rates that are quote-unquote unrealistic and do not reflect market demands, and contributing to the rise in US dollar black markets.
They're also facing similar challenges with the exchange rate.
Yes.
So it's not a unique problem to Kenya. At least in Kenya, we're celebrating some rather curious rally by the local currency against the US dollar. But something interesting, you've realized that in Tanzania, no mention of Valentine's Day, no mention of Ash Wednesday either. In Kenya, only mention of Valentine's Day, very little mention of Ash Wednesday. In Uganda, no mention of Valentine's Day, a lot of discussions around Ash Wednesday. I think it gets more religious, especially with Christianity, the more you get inland into Africa. The coastline is a bit secular.
Relaxed.
And in Tanzania, probably the religion is a bit different as well.
Well, the highlights also, Samia lures Norwegian investors, the trip by President Samia Suluhu in Norway, and Tanzania malls adopting digital sound broadcasting. That in a nutshell is, there's also an interesting highlight there at the very top about the former Prime Minister, Edward Lowassa. What Lowassa will be most remembered for. They have that for you on page 4. That is the Citizen. And our cue to get into the caricature this morning. Page 10, kama kawaida on People Daily.
Page 14 of the Standard.
And page 15 of the Daily Nation.
And I think I'd like to start with the Standard, page 14. And it has this lady who's complaining about so many things. One, fake doctors, fake policemen, fake lawyers, false prophets, fake civil servant, fake political promises. And then there's a commentator, that little dog at the corner saying, "My land is Kenya." That's a cartoon on the Standard today about all the fake and forgeries. That is our life.
Oh, yes, reminds me of that song, "My Land is Kenya."
Yes.
On page 15 of the Daily Nation, it has matters the shilling bouncing back in dramatic surge against the dollar. And there's a door there. It was initially written ICU, but now it is HDU. Try to get what the initial
High dependency unit.
high
Moves from the
dependency.
intensive care unit to the less critical high dependency unit.
Okay. And there are a number of doctors there who the faces are similar to top government advisors. And on the deathbed is a Kenyan shilling. There are two gentlemen there outside saying, phew, at least we survived, or rather we are surviving that. But we again, as you're saying, wait to see how things will be, because it's a whole dramatic bit when money markets fall.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. That will be part of our discussion this morning. Yes, I can see the cartoon, and I think that will be your favorite on the People Daily.
Stano's take. Well, Stano decided to play it easy today and just wish everyone happy Valentine's Day. And giving flowers and gifts to the needy. Quite a noble gesture there. Happy Valentine's Day once more. That will be my last mention of.
I should take you to the men's conference come next year. Something needs to change, but yeah.
How do you know I was not there?
You were not there. I'm telling you.
I might have been there. Pale nyuma.
I was the one with the list of attendees.
Then nilipitia kitchen pale. You know.
You sneaked into the conference.
Yes, I sneaked in because they came in late.
Okay. Even Inonda was not present there. I saw him carrying flowers in town. And unfortunately, amekuwa akitudanganya hapa. Anyway, time now for us to take a break. When we come back, State of the Nation. This morning, we'll be having Robert Alai, MCA Kilelesho Ward in Nairobi. Josephat Kamanya will also be in studio alongside one more panelist. And allow me just to confirm to you properly. Yes, Grace City, MCA Kanyenyaine Ward, Murang'a County. Will also be in studio. Remember, President William Ruto is actually in Murang'a County today. He'll be launching a number of water projects within that county as he continues with his 3-day tour of the Mount Kenya region. Later on, after that discussion, the kept man. Is it okay for a man to stay at home while his woman is out fending for the family? Today we discuss this issue on Relationship Thursday, the kept man. Please share your sentiments with us through our social media pages on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Oh
yes, we'll be opening the phone lines. You can start having the credit as early as now. Weke credit tupigie simu. When you open the phone lines, talk to us. Stick around.
You're watching All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. My name is Fred Indimuli. We now want to take a look at the state of the nation. This morning, we're privileged to have in studio, beginning on my immediate right, Josephat Kamanya, political analyst. Karibu sana.
Good morning.
Grace City, MCA Kanyenyaine Ward, Murang'a County. It's a pleasure to have you in studio today.
Asante, thank you.
And last but not least, Robert Alai, MCA Kileleshwa Ward. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot is happening, and just a look at the papers today. There's, of course, a lot of talk about that AU job that Raila Odinga is being touted for, at least on the front page of the Standard and on the front page of the Daily Nation as well. But I'd want us to start off with the kind of excitement we're seeing around the performance of the local currency. It features on the front page of the Business Daily. Kenya shilling posts strongest single-day gain in 12 years. And a look at X, formerly Twitter, you can see it is a third strongest trend after Valentine's Day and the Men's Conference 2024. The next one is the dollar against the shilling. So it is a big discussion. And Bonalai, I'm looking at your Twitter feed. And you said that tomorrow, this was yesterday, so you said tomorrow, which is today, you will tell what Kenya Kwanza has done to cause a run on the USD. It is a scheme which is working for the short run, but I wonder if it will last. Threats and intimidation too. This was 9 hours ago. So today imefika. Hiyo tomorrow imefika sasa.
Tom, Fred, sorry. It was Tom, no Fred, najua, you both of you are known.
I understand the challenge.
Yeah, Sasa, you see what is happening here. I think my worry is that what is happening to the shilling should be good in the long run. Because the volatility of the shilling is a very dangerous thing to a country, whether it gains or loses in very sharp streaks. So that's what I wish for, and that's why sometimes it's also not good to give negative comments. But what you're seeing is positive, the shilling gaining. What I know has been done is that the CBK talked to some banks. They offloaded some of the dollars, and also the institutional players and the people who are holding the dollar, because there's a lot of holding. People are basically buying dollars and holding that, hoping that the shilling would lose. But when you have seen it rise, I think it is good for the country. My worry is, will they sustain it? Because it can gain, then reaches the peak, then it start losing again in very sharp streaks. And that one, if it happens, that one in a very short period of time, people might lose trust in the shilling, and it might cost a serious run on the shilling. Because I know the dollar can absorb the rate of the losses, the sharp losses, but I don't know if the shilling can really sustain that.
So your biggest concern is that probably this gain may not be sustainable.
Yes, that's my biggest worry. But it's very good for the country. I know it's good, it's bad for the exporters, but I know the country has not, because we are a net importer. So I know that also the cost of some of the goods, the imported cars, electronics, and so on, people might at least feel some relief in that regard. My biggest worry is the volatility. If it is not properly contained, it's going to affect the economy in the long run.
Okay. There's definitely a lot of excitement in Grace City. I think it is your first time on this panel. Yeah. It is a pleasure to have you in studio.
Thank you.
Politically, even for Kenya Kwanza, definitely the president will use it. He made mention of it yesterday. The fact that, yes, the shilling now is making a good run against the dollar. And politically, it's working.
Yeah, it's working, and first of all, I'd want to appreciate the invite. The gesture is very good. And I must also mention that he mentioned about it in my constituency yesterday. He was there and he visited with a lot of goodies, The government is working, Banarai, and you should not be worried of the sustainability of the shilling. We have to appreciate that the first things have been done. Of course, midnight oils have been banned to get wherever we are today. And I think it will be sustained. We are praying, we are working hard. All agencies are working hard, and we are going to at least help Kenyans. Yeah, it will work. Yeah.
Bwana Kamanya, there were sentiments earlier that criticizing some of the interventions made in the previous administration to prop up the shilling against the dollar.
Yes.
And this administration said they would not go that route. But according to what Bonalai says, there seems to be an intervention to some extent by the CBK. But then again, this is what people would expect of a responsible government, that you would not just watch the shilling go on a free fall. You'll do something about it. Between politics and the reality of the money market, which won at the end of the day?
Well, it's interesting because in financial markets, we've always had quite some extreme interventions. Like you mentioned, the previous administration was trying to stabilize the shilling, and it was being accused of artificially doing so. And then here we are again. The shilling has been plummeting, but then within a very short span of time, I think just a day, we saw a drop from 160 to around 150 where we are. I share the sentiments of concern that if this is artificial, the sustainability is would be a big financial loss to traders, us being net importers. But also on the other end, it is responsible for the administration to try and intervene because we were bleeding. Being net importers, everything was just skyrocketing in terms of pricing and or even running the government. But I want to agree that there has been intervention. I think I can say that with confidence that there has been intervention from the government, the CBK, to try and see release of the dollars that are being held.
Shouldn't they have done this earlier?
Well, again, you cannot really force people to run their own private business in order just to rescue you simply because you are in office. It's a matter of a business sense and what makes sense at what time. The back side of it is coercion. You force the market for the shilling to appear strong and the dollar to lose, and then people release the dollars automatically. So it's a catch-22, because you want the shilling to stabilize, you want also the people to remain in business, and as a government, politically, you need to win because everybody was really frustrated by what has been happening here.
And if we could stay with the economy, this issue about our economy and how it's being run and the interventions therein. The other big talking point has been the Eurobond, this new 1.5 billion USD Eurobond to refinance the 2014, or rather to buy out the 2014 Eurobond as well.
Yes.
And a lot of criticism online, Bonalai, about that route, using a loan to buy out another one. And many saying that it's just a situation where we're just kicking the can down the road, that you're postponing the problem. It will mature in 2031, 10 years' time, only a year into the next, just before the next election, at that time, 2032. Do you agree with those sentiments that we've not really sorted out the problem, we've simply postponed it?
I believe we are going to we are postponing the problem, but also the shilling is going to give, our debts, foreign debts, some relief, because whenever the shilling was losing, the debts were increasing in a very magnificent way. So I think the best thing is that for now, the government, the strategy of buying back some of the Eurobonds, I think I don't know what the economists say, but I think is just postponing before the shit hits the fan, like they say. So in the short term, basically, my biggest worry with this government is that why do they do all these things and then run to the road, like they went to her constituency to speak to Kenyans on top of cars, and like they're permanently on the campaign train. I don't know when they strategize, when they sit down and see things happening, because it seems like everything they're doing is for the short term. There's no long-term plan to ensure that things...
But probably that is what Kenyans have been demanding, that we need some relief right now.
Yeah.
We've been told so much that we were under so much pressure on the repayment of this debt by June. And the fact that there is now a solution, at least for the short term, that is what Kenyans were demanding. Is it wrong for the government to take credit at least for providing some relief?
Sometimes the short-term solutions might not be good for a country, because a country depends on the long-term plan. And you know that this country is run by these short-term plans. Everybody is being done for today and now. You're building a road to use today. You're sorting the economy so that you look good today. You are borrowing somewhere to pay somebody else to solve the problem while postponing the main challenge. I think we need to have a long-term plan. And the long-term plan, as long as we still have the IMF and the World Bank in our being our client and us being a client state of them, I think is not showing very good signs for our long-term plan. I wish that we had a proper long-term plan which is going to relieve the country of the debt stress.
Grey City, the president also made mention of this in Muranga yesterday. It is one of those things he's proud of, the fact that he has found a way around that pressure on the maturity of this Eurobond. But skeptics say, fine, yes, according to Alai, we need a long-term solution. Simply postponing it for another 10 years does not really add up, don't you think?
At times it needs an intervention to survive and to keep the country going. You know, we can't just stop the country because we had this loan and it was supposed to be cleared by June this year. There's no way he could have just sat down and get frustrated together with Kenyans. So he had to look for solutions and the country had to move whatsoever. So I think it's good, it will keep us going. We still have the Vision 2030 learning. So by that time, we'll close the bridge when we get there. Yeah.
So you're comfortable with us kicking the can down the road?
As long as it's working, the economy is working, you know, things are learning, loads are being constructed.
Don't you see a situation where the same way that this administration complains about what happened in the previous administration, that all the problems it's facing right now were as a result of actions taken by the last administration?
But we live each day at a time.
Don't you think that that is the same thing that the new administration that will come after 2032? Because even if President William Ruto gets re-elected in 2027, in 2032 we expect that someone else will take charge. That person could still complain that now we are facing troubles from the last administration.
Remember, we have not stagnated at one point. The country is not stagnated. We are doing what we are doing because we want the country to keep going. As we have improved the shilling, things are going to improve. I think it's okay as long as the country is still learning. There's no, you know, tuchotwi. You know, nobody will come and chatter the country. We will learn, and we will improve with time, each day at a time.
Okay. Of course, if you look at the amortization, it means the 3 payments will come, and Kenya Kwanza might argue that, yes, the repayment and the amortization is 3 years before the next elections, 2029, 2030, 2031. The election is in 2032. The president may say, yes, I am a responsible president. I will make sure that by the time I exit, if at all, I'll still be president. I'll have been done by this. Do you think politically that applies?
Well, you see, even last year we were short of defaulting the previous payment, but thank God we did not. We managed to pay. But here we are, and I think the day-at-a-time attitude is what Allah is screaming at, saying we need a long-term plan, because we cannot keep on fleeing as a nation. We are just one financial crisis away to an economic crisis as a country. The president is doing his best, but our solution does not lie in borrowing and deferring payment and seeking extensive periods, because that also comes at a cost. There is interest to pay. Our solution lies on us being able to raise our own source revenue so that we are able first to meet our development budget, our repayment to our loans. So the president may try his best. And remember, we're also working on a budget. You know, the budget making process is on for this year. In a few months, we're going to have a budget. We need to see how much is being allocated to payment and development. But the president also needs to hold a grip on the bleeding on expenditure. And also, we need to do a reallocation of resources to make sure that not only are we deferring payment, but also what we are collecting and what we have is efficiently being utilized. Remember all the borrowing that has happened that we are repaying now. Kenyans are not satisfied on how that or those resources were utilized. Kenyans are still complaining. Because if we had borrowed, there is always a feasibility study on environmental and economic impact. Once you borrow, what project are you going to roll out? What will be the impact? What is the potential of repayment? That is what is causing a hitch when it comes to now, the current administration. We need to work harder and repay. But when you look back, what are we paying for? Some even are coming out boldly and saying we should not be paying. we should do an audit first, and then whoever was responsible for misappropriation should be held accountable. So there is a lot going on. I love the optimism, but we have to be pragmatic, because it's not just about the president. Remember, it is all of us as Kenyans who are suffering. We have seen the attempt, which has gone unspoken, of the government trying to even divert collection of school fees to a single payment system, so that they can have a pool of resources to manage the current urgent financial needs that are existing. So it's a long process. The president is trying, but I don't think we are there yet. Optimism, hope is not what we need. We need a plan. Yeah.
Okay. And as you mentioned, the budget-making process is underway. Parliament is already seized of it. And one would expect that with such kind of interventions, what you're seeing happening with the shilling, what you're seeing happening with the Eurobond, that this relief could actually be extended and the Kenyans will get to feel it, probably through the Finance Act. That comes. Are you that optimistic that we'll actually see
I hope that's because, you know, the challenge I have with Kenya Kwanza is that they believe that to raise more money, you have to raise taxes. They don't believe in broadening the tax base, but they believe in raising more money by taxing people more. And now you even hear the joke, you know, where the president is called Zakayo, and at some point people say that it's better you're left with the tax than the net pay you're getting now, because the net pay is less than the tax you're being charged. So I believe that, you know, as one of the lawmakers, and also Nairobi being a county which is bigger than 21 counties, bottom counties combined, I believe that the Finance Act for this year, we are going to ensure that at least we give some people relief, but we broaden it. We ensure that the enforcement and the collection is broadened and properly monitored. But we have to give Kenyans relief because the tax is too much. If the national government taxes so much and we also bring it down to the counties, people are going to feel the pinch. People are going definitely are feeling a pinch, and we need to give people a relief from the tank. I'm very happy when I was seeing, I think 2-3 days ago, that there's going to be a drop in the prices of fuel again. It is good. For electricity, it has to go down.
It dropped by a shilling yesterday.
Yes, but I hope that we also look at the VAT, because I believe that the biggest problem we have is overcharging on VAT. If we were to reduce the VAT, but ensure that we enforce collection, because I don't believe it's properly enforced. If you go to hardwares, you know, outside this city, you go to buy in shops and hardwares, and you basically don't see proper enforcement of tax collection. You don't get a receipt. If today you're building in your shags, you'll buy things worth 200, 300, or even 500,000. You'll not see proper receipting or tax collections. You know, you wonder if they pay taxes or they don't pay taxes. I know that it affects the price of the goods in the villages there, but I expect the government to ensure that they broaden the tax base so that not few people pay a lot of taxes, but everybody pays their fair share.
Grace, do you share in that optimism that this relief that we are talking about today will actually be extended to the common mwananchi through the budget process?
Yes, to some extent. But I also think it is in order for us to agree to be taxed. You know, some of us who comes from the village like myself, I am voted in a very remote ward, very far, where there is no infrastructure, and like Arai here who wakes up in a tarmac. Like now I've really walked actually to this place. From where I could access proper roads, I've really struggled. And if you don't get these taxes, these roads are not going to be made. If you don't if you don't take these things, there will be no electricity. Like where I come from, there's still no electricity at this century.
So what you're saying, we should not expect any relief. The government should continue with the taxation measures as they are.
As long as whatever they are correcting will get back to the common mwananchi. Yeah, I think it's okay.
Before we take a break.
Yeah, I've always maintained a statement that taxation without representation is illegal. You cannot continue enforcing taxation and increasing percentage, and yet there is no adequate when it comes to redistribution of resources to the public. It's very unfair. You may raise taxes on some of the commodities, but again, you have to be very careful. How do we balance between overtaxation and also discrimination? Because you may say business people or people who carry importers or huge importers need to pay this much, but then what happens to the other small businesses who need the services? I do not have any hope of tax relief come the next budget. I do not. Because like I said, we're in a catch-22. We're just playing safe as of
This
now.
is just excitement about the shilling, about the Eurobond relief, but don't expect any different thing.
Worse off, if it's an
budgeting.
artificial intervention, we're going
It will show.
We'll be crying in July.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting sentiments, especially with regard to Kenya's economy as it is right now. A lot of excitement around the shilling's rally against the US dollar. And the Business Daily says Kenya's shilling posts strongest single-day gain in 12 years, meaning the last time we saw such a rally against the USD by the Kenyan currency was, I think, in 2012. Well, time for us to take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe. We'll be back to discuss Raila Odinga's AU consideration. You're watching TV47. Welcome back. You're watching a Morning Cafe on TV47. This is a State of the Nation with me, Fred Indimuli. I'm still in studio with Robert Alai, MCA Kilelesho Ward, Grace City, MCA Kanyanyaina Ward, Murang'a County, and Josephat Kamanya, a political commentator. And we now want to look at the main headline on the front page of the Daily Nation, Secrets of Raila's AU Job Bid. And they say the game plan, opposition leader Raila Odinga is keen to return to the African Union to head the AU Commission. Note the word keen, a higher profile job than the one he held last at the continental body before his controversial exit last year. Besides relying on the Kenyan government, he has activated his networks around African capitals to assess whether his bid has potential for success or if it is a doomed voyage. Bonalai, there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not Raila Odinga will vie for presidency come 2027. And I can refer back to your Twitter page, and you talked about Kalonzo. Let me quote it directly. Kalonzo can't inherit, and you put that cannot in capital letters, cannot inherit Raila's support base. Hawezi, even with an endorsement. Baba's support base needs an authoritative and decisive leader. Yeah. Kalonzo is considered wishy-washy and indecisive by our support base. Maoni yangu. Ni maoni yako. But with this...
What happens on Twitter stays on Twitter.
The issue is, if at all, and if we look at the story on the Daily Nation, it would appear, according to the words, that Raila Odinga is actually keen on this AU job, which is a 4-year term, meaning if at all he goes that route, he won't be there in 2027, meaning Azimio would be looking for a different leader. Is that the debate we're having right now? is that a debate rife within Azimio? That yes, we are not looking at the possibility of Raila Odinga running in 2027. He's making other considerations. That's why you are saying you're looking or considering whether or not Kalonzo should be the successor.
No, I think the country has found Raila to be a very great asset to this country. And even the dilemma is not within Azimio. The dilemma is within the country. That where do we take Raila? Even the people who fear Raila going to the AU Commission are Kenya Kwanza supporters, more than the Azimio supporters. Because none of them trust Ruto. Very few of them trust Ruto. So they believe that the only person who can check the person we have in power today is Raila. What if he leaves? Who will protect us from this man? So the dilemma is less on the Azimio side, but more on the Kenya Kwanza side. The consideration for the AU Commission job, chairmanship of the AU job has been previously, OAU used to be called the Secretary General, who is basically the CEO of the Secretariat, has been there for a long time, I think for the last 1 month or so. But what I know is that he has not applied, and unless he applies, unless he submits an application, I think it's by the end of this month, he should have applied for the job so that he can be considered for the job. But he also needs to lobby. I know there was even talk previously. You remember when it was said that there was a fight between him and the former president for the job, which we have not seen a fight between Raila and Uhuru. Any evidence that there was a fight. What I know is that BAMBA has not said that he's not interested in the job, but he has also not said that he's interested in the job. So unless he applies, we don't know for sure if he's going to go for the job. What we know is that Kenya Kwanza is very determined, the leadership of Kenya Kwanza is very determined to ensure that he doesn't give them a strong opposition in 2027, considering the kind of fumbles they're having in the country.
The headlines yesterday were basically saying that it's Kenya Kwanza that's fronting Raila for this job. And it takes me back to a statement made by Musalia Mudavadi, the Prime CS, when he was in Bondo. And he promised the people of Bondo that he'll be back with very good news. Yesterday, Mudavadi headed to the AU. There's an AU summit coming up this weekend. Mudavadi is there. Part of his job is to try and make sure things are going right. Any connection to that?
Yeah, so there's always, like I said, the Kenya Kwanza leadership is very determined to ensure that Raila is under competition for them. But let me tell you for a fact that Raila going for the AU Commission job does not mean that he's running away from contesting for any political seat in the country. He can decide to resign before the campaign starts.
But what would it mean? Because you say that it's people within Kenya Kwanza who are really worried about Raila. But if at all Raila Odinga was to go the AU way, what would it mean to most of you ODM politicians, most of whom are purely riding on Raila Odinga's name?
We have to write. We appreciate. People always complain of that until they get to feel the effect of that, because basically it gives a big relief to a good number of us that we have a strong leader who can be relied on. Sometimes people don't go for some parties because there's no leadership which can be relied on. Then the second thing with the ODM is that because of the built structures, if today you land in Tana River, you land in Garissa, even in Muranga, you'll get proper ODM structures from the chairman downwards. Building a party like that is no mean feat. And especially considering now what Kenya Kwanza has been doing to the political parties, they basically refused to release the political parties fund. But we have to give it to Raila that what he has done for this country is more than being the president. And my biggest worry is that how can we now build the next level cadre of leaders? Because ODM also needs that. Raila's, I've seen a lot of interest in people wanting to be endorsed. My worry is that Raila was not endorsed. You remember even his own father went for Rengo as the low leader. His own father went for Wamalwa Kijana as the party leader to inherit from him. But he built his own mantle.
Even within Azimio, possible successor?
There are a lot of successors,
Just not Kalonzo.
I'm seeing Joe. I've seen
Joe.
Joe wants to be within a...
Joe, when you say Joe...
Governor Joe.
Or Joho.
Joho.
Joe,
Okay.
Governor Joe, Governor Wanga. I'm seeing a strong number of leaders, coming out to say that they...
All those are ODM members.
Even young. We have to first talk ODM. Because, Azimio was a political vehicle formed for 2027. I have not seen these political vehicles exist more than 5 years. So I'm not sure about 2027 if Azimio will be there. So first, I can only speak about ODM, which we have to build. You've seen as doing a lot of registration, grassroots registration. Okay. That is what we have to do. We insist that Wiper has to do their own. Jubilee, you saw even yesterday, Jeremiah Kioni hosting a good number of Jubilee leaders. They have to sort their own infighting and come. If they're going to be part of Azimio, they have to come as a strong party.
And before I go to the other panelists, what is your misgiving about Kalonzo Musyoka?
The problem is that it is not Kalonzo's mistakes. But I think that character-wise, how he's built, his character is not good for Raila's support base. Raila's support base, especially considering the history of the opposition in this country. The history of the opposition in that is that if there was a time that we have had President Kenyatta, President Moi, then President Kibaki, then President Kenyatta, and now President Ruto, whenever there was a fight between the opposition and the government, a good number of opposition supporters were removed from government or civil service jobs, or were sacked, or were denied opportunities in business, in government, and so on. And that built the support base of opposition in cities. That's why you have a lot of Kisumondogos in Thika, Mombasa, Nairobi, and so on. And even you have places like Kibra, Mathare, and so on, with a good number of opposition. These people, to transfer their support from one leader to the other, you need somebody who can give them direction. Somebody whom they say that, kama kuna ukuta hapa, tutapita na hiyo ukuta. I don't believe that Kalonzo is such a leader. I don't believe, because Kalonzo is a soft-spoken leader, is very strategic in thinking. These people don't believe in that. They believe in somebody who can give them direction and can face enemies head-on. Sometimes you see Kalonzo, when you call for maybe a maandamano, is not willing to appear on it, and it's very hard to transfer that. So unless you get strong leaders like Ledama Olekina, Gladys Wanga, and so on, who are very, decisive and strong character-wise, I don't believe that you can transfer that character, the opposition support of Raila, the bedrock of the support, because Raila's support is not the middle class. It's the people who never pays, the people who knows, and sometimes a good number of them inherited the support. Okay. They are maybe a Kali mechanic who inherited the trade from their fathers or grandfathers, but they know that the person who brought in their suffering is in government, and the only support base for them to properly ply their trade in the places they ply their trade is they have to stick with the opposition. Okay.
Grace, there's a lot of excitement even within government circles, within the Kenya Kwanza administration about this. If you saw the Prime CS talking about that secret and some goodies to people of Bondo, he had a very nice grin on his face. This excitement more or less is about 2027. And do you think that actually, yes, Kenya Kwanza has hit the nail on the head, that once you get rid of Raila as a competitor in 2027, then President William Ruto will sit pretty. Same assessment that maybe Kalonzo Musyoka is not a candidate who's strong enough for that job?
One thing that is coming out very clearly in Azimio is that they are not organized until they are being wapangwe.
Wanapangwe sasa.
They're not organized until sasa wapangwe, and that can happen. But I don't think it's because of the candidature of 2027. It's because Raila is not a bad man, he's a good man. And if there's a job for him that he can do very well, depending on his experience, charisma, leadership skills, fine, he can be fronted. But I've read here that he's also not sure. He can only take up the job if he is assured in the strength of his candidature. So apia yeye bado hajiamini. Of course, sio mtu wa kushinda. So he's also weighing his ways of maybe getting in a comfortable place with no competition.
But why do you think Kenya Kwanza would be interested in fronting Raila for a job outside Kenya?
It's extending the kind gesture.
What is the reason behind it? These are political opponents. Why turn and say, okay,
A
fine?
political opponent is also a Kenyan, and a veteran Kenyan who needs to be considered in case there is any goodie coming along.
Yet there are other Kenyans who would be qualified for the job, and there was mention of the retired president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Even Kalonzo Musyoka is a qualified diplomat as well. These are people who would still serve Kenya well in such a capacity. Why do you think Kenya Kwanza appears to have settled for Raila Odinga for this job?
I don't think they are really settled. It's just a consideration that is there, and he fits that consideration so well. Yeah.
Okay. Bwana Kamanya, your assessment about this issue?
Well, I'm reading various sentiments. Because one, let's remember that Baba is the official leader of opposition. And he's also the leader of one of the oldest, strongest, largest political parties, ODM, which is the host party in the Azimio fraternity. So if the attempt of the Kenya Kwanza administration is to have him occupy the African Union office, if they do go through, and if they attempt, the motivation is so that we eliminate the opposition leadership, then that is good for Kenya Kwanza, but that is a sad day for Kenyans, because then the opposition will be fully compromised. And remember, we're just coming from the bilateral talks, whereby the opposition was very quiet and trying to have the issues addressed during those conversations. And we haven't seen much relief from that for the common mwananchi. The opposition, remember, their role ought to be they're checking the government and they're trying to intervene on where it's like now we're talking about the cost of living, an issue that has gone unaddressed in parliament and also from the talks. So if Baba happens to go to the African Union, I see a sad day for Kenyans because, again, who will be checking the current government in terms of opposition? If he does go, then the question comes up, what will happen to Alai in 2027 when ODM wants to front a presidential candidate? So who will that be? I don't know why the Azimio fraternity is not very warm to Kalonzo's candidature. Much as he has been branded as the watermelon, some of it is his own doing, but also perhaps it's about time they start reconsidering, because Baba, being the enigma that he is, also his political timeline is coming to an end somehow.
Do you think this is the best retirement job for him?
I don't think so. In my humble opinion, I think that's not the exit plan he ought to assume. He ought to focus on building his party and mentoring young leaders, prepare them for 2027, get Alai in parliament, move him from the county assembly, and also other parties as well. The old timers, Baba being one of the, I think he could be the last living Pan-Africanist. Okay, we still have Museveni. But if you look at his caliber of political class, they are being edged out naturally by time. So the best thing he can do is to pass on the baton, pass on the mantle to people who share his political ideologies, to people who share his political ideals, to people who are Pan-Africanist, people who are patriotic. Going to the African Union may not yield a lot for us as Kenyans. It might be good for him, it's a good fit for him. He fits the bill. I don't think there are many people on the continent who would actually execute the mandate of being the CEO of the African Union. Baba fits the bill. But I think we also need him more here politically, so he can keep the political fire burning. At least we can have the government in check. And he needs to come out strongly being the official leader of the opposition. Okay. The succession politics, they are bleeding both political fraternities. If you look at the Kenya Kwanza, we are having a lot of issues, Azimio as well. We need to sort of find a way to manage this. Okay. Yeah.
And if we could consider, because it's been mentioned also in this debate that Uhuru Kenyatta could be a possible candidate for that job as well. There had always been that debate on what to do with this young retired president. Do you think that that would be a better deal for Kenya Kwanza to front the retired president for this job?
I wouldn't even say Kenya Kwanza. I think it's good for Kenya because President Uhuru tried actually his best to do the East African region. He did very well. We've made significant milestones and progress. I think he would serve best at the African Union. He still has time. He's young, if age is any consideration to go by. And yeah, I mean, so we are not short of candidates. In my opinion, if we were to choose between Baba going or Uhuru going, we'd rather let Uhuru go and have Baba here. Yes.
Now that the NADCO report is up for debate in Parliament, and one of the issues there was the formation of office of the official leader of opposition. And people expected naturally, if at all this was to come to fruition, it would be Raila Odinga to occupy that seat. Now this debate will be open if at all Raila Odinga was to consider this AU position seriously.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting because, you know, they were forming the opposition's office, the official opposition's office with one person in mind. And that's what we told them not to do. That please don't have somebody in mind because Raila might not be interested in that naturally. And with the current constitution, the official leader of the opposition is the minority leader. And anyway, the minority leader is the official leader of the opposition.
And he already has an office.
There's an office there, and it's very well funded with, you know, even chase cars and so on. I don't know why they need another office for a different person. And that's why I see the president so, because it was a stopgap measure. But now they have seen an opportunity to edge him out. They have to take him to the AU Commission. The people, they're going to face a lot of resistance from their own supporters. And I believe that whatever Raila decides might be giving the countries a huge political direction. And you know, the worry, like Josephat has said, is that we don't have the caliber of leaders of Raila with the institutional memory, you know, even the memory of the African continent and the world history like he has. And that's why also the world powers were very united in trying to stop him from being president, because of the kind of memory can change a lot of things if he assumes the leadership of the country. But for the Kenya Kwanza, they are thinking of the next election. Everything, you know, this country does things because of two reasons. Either somebody wants to steal money or somebody would want to win an election. People need to have plans beyond elections. That's my worry, is that the president must not be on top of cars for the next 2-3 years. So that we sort the issues, the salient issues. Sometimes it needs going to meet privately with President Uhuru. You remember the last time we had a meeting, we were sitting on this platform, and I say that the biggest undoing of the president currently is not having a good relationship with the former president. Whatever view we have of the former president, he has to, you know, a former leader is a former leader. And even the attempted raid on the son's residence was a very unfortunate thing. Not because I'm a very good fan. I'm not a big fan of President Uhuru. I think he costed us, you know, the 2022 contest in a great way. But I believe that as a former president, he has to be given a certain level of respect. And
do you think he should be considered for this AU position?
I believe he still, you know, depending what he does with himself, but I believe that he still has a lot of time in his hand. He can be considered. He should have been given priority. Between
Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, who would you choose?
For the African continent, for the African, because Raila is a Pan-Africanist. I think for Raila, that opportunity, it ends in 2027. If he takes it up, I think it's good for the African continent, because the African continent is now devoid of this. You have seen the coups in those young people need guidance. They need somebody who can sit with them and represent a body which they recognize. There is no person who is going to come from the European Union or the Americas who is going to advise these young people. So you need the caliber of leader of Raila, somebody going down to South Africa. They are facing a lot of challenges, strong. You have seen there's a silent genocide which is happening in the DRC. Nobody's talking about it. Somebody with a memory who can help and sit down with all these leaders and who has traveled the world.
So Raila, if it was Raila vis-a-vis Uhuru Kenyatta,
basically Raila would I don't think that Uhuru has the character to lead the AU currently. Yeah.
Grace, you wanted to say something?
Concerning...
Yeah, concerning what Bwana Kamanya, I thought I saw you trying to signal. You wanted to...
I wanted to say, This AU job is not even a flaunting thing. It's somebody going, picking the form and asking for the job, applying for the job. So the issue of being fronted by Kenya Kwanza government is he has to decide first and apply. Yeah.
But
so even if Uhuru comes and
getting
decides
the support
to apply,
of your home government is something major.
it's like the way we do elections. You have to wake up, go to the party, register as a party member, pay for the party, registration fee, and then you go to your constituents and ask for support and votes.
Are you saying, Grace, that you do not see any benefit for Kenya Kwanza if Raila Odinga is not on the ballot come 2027?
Of course, the country will be. It should be
smooth sailing for Kenya Kwanza.
Smooth sailing, walkovers, and of course, we will not have much noise from this. And stone throwing.
Okay. Are you concerned at how politics in Kenya would change without Raila Odinga? It is inevitable that at some point he will exit this space. But are you concerned that it could come sooner than expected?
Well, change is good as a rest. Perhaps the change coming sooner might be the relief that we require. It might change the political fiber. Because remember, in 2007, was it? 2002? I stand to be corrected. Baba said, Kibaki Tosha. If Baba goes to AU, it does not mean he's losing his political support. So he could turn around in 2027 and say, Grace Tosha, which could be worse than him being on the ballot. And that whoever Baba chooses may choose to endorse that time. Might be Kalonzo, and I believe if he does so, Alai will support Kalonzo, or it might be somebody else. So it's interesting. I want to see how it develops. Okay. I'm not scared. I'm not really concerned, but it's very interesting to see because maybe that's the move that we need. Baba to exit our national politics, now looking at it from a different angle, so that now we can have a new breed of political bargain. Okay. It's going to be interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
I want us to move to a different conversation, and this is what is happening in Parliament. Finally, the National Dialogue Committee report has been presented before the National Assembly and the Senate. We've made mention of it with regard to that office of the official opposition leader. But there are key issues, key among them the reconstitution of the IEBC. So many issues have come up, so many delays have occurred. We are set to defy the Constitution in the next few weeks with that lapse of the deadline of the delimitation of boundaries. But there appears to be still some push and pull, even in Parliament, especially on the selection panel, that order from the High Court for the panel that is there currently to proceed with the matter. And then in Parliament, and Azimio still pushing for an expanded selection panel. Do you think with the kind or the current political environment that they may be able to strike a balance between going the Kenya Kwanza way, of which they'll say, fine, the selection panel is already in place, or wait until this is discussed? Because it could take months. Yeah.
But I think also for the country, sometimes people wish a lot of consensus and striking balance for a country, and it's good in the short run, but in politics, sometimes peace is not a good thing because sometimes people agree to do the wrong thing. It is sometimes wise to let people argue, fight over and at least reach a consensus. You remember what brought in IPPG? It was a strong fight against President Moi. And when people sat down, that's what birthed 202, the most amicable and the most successful election we've had in this country. I think the best thing is sometimes, can these parties give their positions strongly, be allowed free? Then people agree that as a country, we have had your views, we've had our views, but when the court gives a ruling that the selection panel which is in place has not done anything wrong or can continue doing their work, then that's the biggest challenge. It is not the court to solve the political matters. I believe that the thing they have to do is to let the politicians agree. Sometimes it might not be the most legal thing, but the thing they have to do is that look at the greater interest of the country, because that is the biggest thing. For Kenyans not to go for any civil strife, the selection panel of IEBC has to be very representative.
Should be expanded.
Yes, and they are going to be, and these are still, the people are going to be more worried are people in Kenya Kwanza. Because they saw what the current president did when he was there in Jubilee towards the 2017 elections. And the kind of machinations he put in place to ensure that the people, anybody who opposed him, did get a position. So I think the current selection panel, the people are going to need one which is more representative are people in Kenya Kwanza.
Okay. Do you think that they've managed through this and through that pronouncement by the court, Kenya Kwanza has managed to box Azimio into a corner? Now,
to an extent,
for us to cede to this NADCO direction, then you'd have to offer support in other matters, including the affordable housing bill.
Yeah, I believe there's kind of a boxing in, but I don't believe that Kenya Kwanza is going to succeed in that regard because they need, internally, they need the input of the opposition party. You remember what even President Magufuli did in Tanzania, properly rigging out basically every opposition politician out of the contest in the 2020 elections. Then realizing that for it to be a multi-party parliament, they needed some opposition representatives. And so he had to force, even without the willingness of Chadema, he had to force in 19 women to be nominated from Chadema, even when Chadema said that those are not their representatives and they have stayed up to now, even against court rulings. So I think that what Kenya Kwanza needs is that they need a consensus, especially on the selection panel. Leave alone the NADCO report. The selection panel itself, they need and that's why I think the president sat back and said that, hey, we'll have to stop this for us to stop Mandamano. And because I realized that it is going to cause a lot of strife, this is where everybody is going to cause problems as long as it's not feeling that they're representative of them. Yes. Okay.
Grace, of course, the debate about the reconstitution of IEBC, the delimitation of boundaries, probably is very key, especially in the Mount Kenya region. I know that debate about one vote, one shilling, one man has probably died down, but we've seen some, well, semblance of mamas, especially within Murang'a County, and it is said that this is based on that argument. The fact that this delay, and this delay cannot be in reconstituting the IEBC, cannot be blamed on either Kenya Kwanza or Azimio. It is political players across board. The fact that this delay could result in delayed or lack of delimitation or review of boundaries will affect that debate. Do you think that Mount Kenya is willing to have that talk right now, ahead or before 2027, the issue of delimitation or review of boundaries?
It's quite disturbing and uncomfortable in Mount Kenya if we start having that conversation, because it will be very, very much, it will take a lot of sittings, time, a lot of displacement of kujipanga siasa.
So it is a very inconvenient debate to have now.
It's a very inconvenient debate, and I don't think it should see the light.
Yet it is a constitutional requirement that boundaries are reviewed and the deadline comes up. Fine, IEBC's delay has brought us here. But according to the Constitution, we still need to have this delimitation and review of boundaries. So it will happen at some point. But are you saying that it is such an uncomfortable discussion to have, especially ahead of 2027?
Yeah, it is. It is very, very uncomfortable and very destabilizing.
Is it because of the politics within Kenya Kwanza that leaders have been told wachana na hiyo maneno? Or do you think there are other influences to that?
It might be from the instructions.
So there were instructions.
It might be from the instructions, but I think the best thing is to let it delay and at least deliver.
Okay.
At least do what is supposed to be done. At least try to pour up resources from every corner, help our people until they're stable enough then that we can think about that.
So politicians have managed to ensure that this debate will not happen before 2027. So this delayed reconstitution of IEBC is actually by design. We are defying the Constitution intentionally because we are uncomfortable at having a certain discussion on the delimitation of boundaries. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, you know, constitutionally, we are bound to review our boundary delimitation. Because 10 years for the 24 months, they do expire next month. I worry because the political expediency must be tamed. It's turning out, you know, we're just into the first quarter of this administration, you know, and then we are already planning the next general election. Part of it being trying to manipulate the IEBC selection. While we know that all the disputes we've had, which led to the NADCO, the talks, were as a result of people not having confidence in the same institution we are trying to reorganize and reconstitute right now. So it behooves the current administration for even us to add the credibility, to earn the credibility of the people, the general population, to let this process of IEBC selection be very independent, very transparent, and very representative. Having more people, in my opinion, does not mean it's going to be fair. We need efficiency. Because remember, we had what are the people of a dissenting voice, the infamous 4, and still, had they been 9, because there has to be an odd number for it to, at some point, have a deciding vote. I don't believe in having more numbers is going to get the more work done. We need people who are qualified. Remember, that's an independent commission. Why then are we allowing political infiltration and interference? It gives me what you'd call a red flag. I'm not comfortable when I look at it that way because, again, remember, we cannot have safe nets for politicians by infiltrating formation of commissions for their own political survival. What happens on the day that they outrightly lose, and then this commission that was endorsed by Alai and company, they must validate their win, which is an actual loss. It puts the country in a limbo. So we need to have some real conversations. Even in Kenya as Kenyans, I remember the bilateral talks had invited inputs from Kenyans, but then it became more overwhelming. And these are some of the concerns people are trying to raise. So the regulations need to be addressed. Remember also we are dealing with the issue of the NLC, the National Land Commission, a constitutional commission that is seeming to be now wants to be erased and replaced by other structures. Yet we have a constitution. Our constitution is supreme. When it comes to IBC, we have to agree from all political divide that we need to have a fair referee who can play back the VAR. We have had issues of the open the server, it doesn't happen. We've had issues of retallying, it doesn't happen. Currently, we have an issue, there's a by-election that should be happening, I think, in the Northeastern. For now, a long time, they don't have, because the IBC is not in office. They don't have a representative in parliament, because the IBC is not in office to oversee that. So I would call upon our members of parliament and Kenyans at large, let's not compromise first when it comes to the IBC, because that is what is going to give us a peaceful outcome come the next election.
Okay. But what about these delays, especially because now automatically we'll defy the Constitution come next month? There's no way. Because there's no way we can have an IEBC in place and carry out the delimitation.
Yes.
In fact, this debate could take months in Parliament. Hence my question. Do you think that this delay in reconstituting the IEBC could be informed by the reluctance of political players to have this discussion about delimitation of boundaries, that they found a shortcut of not having that discussion?
Well, yes, I do agree. It's the politicians, the incumbents are the ones who are dilly-dallying with the process. One, it serves them right, because remember the delimitation was bringing some reorganization of, actually some of the Mount Kenya region was a beneficiary. Some areas, Jeremiah Kioni was to lose a constituency, but other areas like Kiambaa and Kiambu were to gain because they were to be split. So it also informs the resources allocation, because every constituency receives, the CDF, they receive almost 100 million. So that would have doubled in some constituencies that would have been split. Some sitting MPs are not comfortable with that. In other areas, now I remember we had issues, I think, in the Northeastern, they were to lose almost, I think, similar number of constituencies. So the dilly-dallying is really costing Kenyans. But yes, I agree with you, it's deliberate by the politicians. They do not want it to see the light of the day. They have been delaying it, but we need to have the civil society come into play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that we're discussing about the NADCO report and some of the proposals there in Bonalai would require amendments to the Constitution. We've had so many attempts to amend this Constitution, and 13 years later, almost 14 years now, none has been successful. Not the BBI, not the private members in Parliament attempting, not the Punguza Mzigo. Now we're looking at the NADCO report. And the fact that we are also defying provisions of the Constitution, this will be a huge defiance if we fail to meet this deadline. Don't you think we're setting a precedent now that we've been unable to amend the Constitution, that now we found a few shortcuts to do away with some of the provisions, that we will defy these provisions on delimitation and that nothing will happen?
Now, I believe that, the fact that we have not been able to succeed in easily amending the Constitution is a very good positive sign from the Constitution, that we have a very, resilient Constitution which can stop it. Because it should not be easy to amend the Constitution. It should be, you have to bring in consensus. People have to agree. Even the president with the machinery of the states and so on in BBI could not be able to achieve that. My biggest worry about the delimitation, as somebody who's elected in Nairobi and to see, is that most of the time when you want to do the boundaries, we do it for the convenience of the politicians in place and those who want to contest. We don't do it for effective service delivery. You even see it in Nairobi, you even see the issues like boundaries. I believe that we need the participations of the citizens, especially the most intellectually capable, which is the middle class. As long as their participation and the input is lacking in this regard, the boundary delimitation will achieve, nothing to the citizens, but it will only serve the interests of the politicians in this country. The fact that we are going to go against the constitutional deadline is a bit of a challenge to me. But I believe that if the leaders, we were to sit down, the president and the opposition leaders, we were to sit down, I think would have consensus in this regard and agree. And one person, I still believe, even Mount Kenya will try to ignore him as much as possible, is President Uhuru, because I believe that having served in that capacity, his input in this regard would constitute almost 30% of the input needed for us to have a consensus and have a way forward.
Wouldn't we be setting a dangerous precedent? Yes. That if at all we resolve this crisis, constitutional crisis, through a dialogue, that even other requirements of the Constitution, including dates of the election and swearing in of the president, could be negotiated in such a manner?
I believe that some of the things, we have to negotiate for the country to have a win-win. You saw what happened in the Grand Coalition government, for us to have the position of the Prime Minister and to stop the bloodshed. You had to have a dialogue to an extent. And I believe that sometimes the dialogue is very good because the Kenya is still, we are not being led by ideological parties with ideological grounding. We're still led in almost ethnic enclaves. It's this ethnicity plus this ethnicity will bring this ethnicity, will bring these numbers to defeat this ethnicity. United. So when the politics is ethnic based, it is very risky for a country. It's like tinkering on the precipice. So the best thing for us to do is that dialogue serves more than what the law demands.
But Grace, do you think that is the way to go? Are we saying that the Constitution has become so uncomfortable for us? We are not even ready to use constitutional means to amend the Constitution, and now we are looking for political roundtables to discuss how to defy and remedy the Constitution. Do you think that is the right way to go? Even stemming from the NADCO process itself.
It is not really defying, but for once I agree with him that even the court allows the ADLs. Sometimes a matter is referred to, even Wazes, in the village to discuss it. So to me, it's okay. But I also want to remind my brother here that much as he says that Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president, is needed in these conversations, remember he was also in the presidency with William Ruto. So I don't think there's anything that the government was doing that William Ruto, the president, doesn't know. So we don't need to bring him back, let him retire, let him, advise his glad children comfortably and feeding his goats, rather than involving him in every other activities that we are doing. That really shows that the government is not, the president is not the president enough.
Okay.
So he should be let to rest. Yeah.
Back on the NADCO report, because there's so many provisions and so many proposals in that report, but there are some that are more urgent than others, and some may require even referenda, according to the arguments I've heard. Are you confident that now that it's before Parliament, that probably it will receive the kind of attention it needs? The issues like the IEBC should be at the forefront, but when you lump it in a bus with the same proposal to form office of the official leader of opposition, do you think that could compromise or cause further delays?
It will cause further delays, and my concern remains that the Constitution should not be up for discussion and a reserve for a few to decide and revise and then give us recommendations. A Constitution is binding to us all. Remember, that is our delegated power. That's how we want to be governed. So anything that requires a referendum should be subjected to such. Matters that require attention at the National Assembly, they should be addressed at the National Assembly. But other issues, we cannot allow, I don't think it would be right for the country to have another office of the opposition. Like he said, Ali said, rightly so, that we already have the leader of the minority. If we were to create that office, and I've asked this question before, where will now, in this case, assuming it's BAMBA, where will he sit in Parliament? How will he address Parliament as who? Who comes with the budget allocation? Are they going to have two parallel offices? So there are so many questions that come up. So I would want to have a separation of powers. Matters that require the Constitution review, we should be subjected to that conversation as Kenyans. Where we need to have input, we do. Where we need a referendum, we do that. If we choose to defer, because again, remember, Kenyans can decide we are not time ready because of the time-bound timelines that we have on the boundary review and delimitation, then we want to extend this and do this in 6 months or in 24 months. As Kenyans, we can agree to do that because you hold the supreme power through, of course, another referendum or public participation. But matters of IEBC, that needs to be decided as soon as yesterday. And then IEBC can get rolling. Remember, we have always had this conversation that we are nearing the election. We do not have the budget for the IEBC. They are not ready. They are struggling to prepare themselves. And that's when you start hearing issues of the contracting of the ballot papers and all these systems. Now they end up giving us a crisis. To manage a crisis, the post-election violence that we have continued to witness, it needs to be managed before the election. Having an independent commission that everybody believes in, that if you get to the ballot, the results that shall be tallied and announced will be what is real, actual, and can be confirmed and verified. Because you had issues of legality and legitimacy when it comes to the results of an election. Then the other thing is we need to move away. And I would want to call a lie on this so that we can start having this conversation as young leaders of this nation. That the conversation, the post-election conversation, should not be the solution to our political indifference. We need to have a system that we can all agree to participate in an election on that guides us. We have administrative structures, IBC being one of them, and other agencies coming on board, so that Ali and I, should we go for the same position, I lose to him, I should be very comfortable because the results can be confirmed, verified, and retallied. But we cannot continue relying on, after every election, let's have a sit down. Let's have a nusu mkate. Let's have the NADCO. Let's try to create a BBI. These things need to come to an end.
Okay.
We need a paradigm shift, and it's about time.
Okay.
And I would want to call on all the litigants, because judiciary is going to be very busy, I think, from next month. These issues of IEBC, these issues of constitutional violation, they need to be addressed. Anybody who can put out a voice, this country is ours. And remember, even dictatorship works for people, for as long as it is in power. So should there be a change of administration in 2027, and Kenya Kwanza is not the administration that takes power, these changes that we are trying to make now, how will they serve us then? Okay.
Yeah. As we wrap up this edition of Morning Cafe and looking at the state of the nation, I'd like us to make a comment on the expected cabinet retreat next week. And yesterday, cabinet met, and from what we understand is that the president told the cabinet secretaries that they will have to account individually on the performance of their ministries, and that's happening next week. And as you make your final comments, do you think, what is your rating of the performance of this cabinet, and do you think it is time that some of them forced out of that prestigious position?
Yeah, I believe, you know, professionally I'm trained in ICT. I believe we have the worst ICT CS, so starting from there, agriculture, you know, labor, the export, you know, if somebody even sat in the cabinet and decided to export a good number of well-bodied Kenyans to foreign countries, to go and serve in countries and start life there while ignoring the interests of the country. I believe that this cabinet has done a lot of injustices to this country. It was structured to do that. But one positive thing I think I've gained from this cabinet is the regular retreats. I think it brings sanity to them. I think they would have been even worse if they were not going for these retreats, because I think this is the third or fourth retreat. It's a positive thing to see from the president that he's doing this. The value of these retreats, they also need to have mechanisms to gauge on the values of these retreats themselves, so at least we know that economic, because, you know, going for a retreat and stopping to the functions for a period, maybe 3 or 4 days or for a weekend, it affects the country in a way. So are we getting values from these retreats? But I believe from the characters who are in the cabinet currently, I think that it is a positive thing. My biggest worry is that the president has not seen, like the president was very eloquent trying to position Kenya's place in ICT. And Kenya is being called the Silicon Savannah. But if you have the wrong person at the ICT ministry, it is not serving the interest of...
Listening to you, you've mentioned at least 4 or 5 CSs who should be let go of.
Yes, Lido Walo starts there, the labor minister. But one was taking pictures in Germany recently, I believe should go. I believe the Minister for East Africa, you know, the fact that Kenya can even have problems with the neighbors. You know, you can change anything else, but you cannot change your neighbors. Kenya cannot move the positions geographically. So the best thing would have been find a minister who can help the president serve the interest of the region and ensure that the Kenyan's position economically is cemented and not interfered with. Okay. So I believe that they should go.
Grace, as you make your final comments on this issue?
Yeah, I think it's a positive.
Do you agree that at least 5 CSs the president should let go of them?
Yeah, I agree with him that some should be laid off, especially those that were given the position based on the political rewards. I think it's enough now. They've taken whatever they were to take. We need people who are serious on the agendas of the Kenya Kwanza government, not the excited molecules we see. Some of them are even politicians who are still doing politics. So you need to listen to them. They need to account for whatever time they've been there and whatever they have been able to deliver on his behalf, because they are his appointees to represent him. If someone is really interested in politics, he'll be laid off and go to politics wherever he wants to be. So I think it's also, they will also give us Kenyans what they have been doing and their achievements, and we will gauge them. And before I leave, allow me to at least say hi to my people in Kenya. Thank you for voting me in, and I am going to represent you as you did.
Your camera is there directly. You can talk to them directly.
No, allow me to pass my gratitude and greetings to my people of Kanyanyaine. Thank you for voting me in. I will represent you as you sent me to do, and also pass a gratitude to our able governor, Irungo Kang'ata. He's the best governor that we've ever had. He is the best governor in Kenya. Okay. So thank you so much.
Fred, no MCA should praise a governor. You must never allow that one. That one you're killing oversight.
The best. You're working so well with him, and he's helping us.
Umetengeneza cartel kwa county.
He's helping me deliver to my people.
It's definitely within our rights to do so. Finally, Kamanya.
Yes, 3 things. And I'm waiting to see which CS will be late. Remember, we had an incident. When
they signed a
yes,
performance contract
only
last year.
It's a good call to convene them and see who actually is working and who is not. I also agree all the CSAs who are political appointees, and some of them has miserably failed Kenyan people. So it will be interesting to see how that comes out. I think the president is also having a hard time trying to really rally a team that can effectively support him. But all the more, let's see what comes out of the retreat. Whoever gets fired will be able to welcome him back to the streets. We shall be waiting. And whoever is doing diligently, we want to see how they'll be recognized. I just hope that the continuous surveying, we continue seeing this one is performing and this one is not, are quite fair and reasonable. All the more, I'm concerned again about because remember they met, the cabinet met, and they approved the sale of some national assets. I don't think that's a route to go, because we seem to be disposing assets that we'll need to buy back in a very short and very near future. We need to find another way of managing what the resources the government holds for the Kenyans. Okay. This issue of patching up first aid is not really going to heal the wounds that we are bleeding financially. Okay. Finally, I hope we get to lay to rest Kiptum. That was quite tragic, and yeah, I hope all Kenyans can keep peace.
Okay. Thank you so much, Josephat Kamanya, political analyst, Grace City MCA Kanyenyaine Ward, Murang'a County, and Robert Alai, MCA Kileleshwa Ward, Nairobi County, our panelists this morning on State of the Nation, as we take a look at headlines and issues that matter to Kenyans. Now, straight to our editorial comment this morning that calls for the urgent action needed to address e-citizen system hiccups. Now, the move to centralize payments for all government services through the e-citizen platform holds promise for combating corruption and enhancing transparency. However, the implementation of this directive has been marred by persistent hiccups and challenges, raising serious concerns about the efficacy of the system. Now, yesterday's cabinet directive on the digitization of the education sector within 30 days to curb fraud and exploitation of parents underscores the urgency of addressing the shortcomings of the e-citizen platform. The centralization of payments for school fees spanning primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, including public universities, could signal a significant step towards streamlining processes and enhancing accountability. However, the effectiveness of this initiative hinges on the reliability and functionality of the e-citizen platform. Regrettably, cases of delayed government services persist, undermining the intended benefits. This not only frustrates citizens, but also erodes trust in the government's ability to deliver on its promises. If the government is committed to leveraging digital solutions to improve service delivery, it must prioritize the resolution of existing challenges within the platform. The goal should be to create a robust system capable of facilitating millions of seamless transactions and minimizing disruptions to essential services. Furthermore, transparency and accountability must be upheld throughout the process to ensure